In5D Radio presents The Truth Denied, Talk Radio, with your host, Roxy Lopez, where truth never lies. If you would like to speak with Roxy on the air, the call-in number is 347-327-9997. Here she is, your host, Roxy Lopez. Never lies.
Good morning, everybody. The Truth Denied Talk Radio. I'm your host today, Roxy Lopez. We've got a great show for you. Of course, we have Howard, our commentator now, who comes onto the weekly show, gives us political updates, and that's good for us. We need to know what's going on politically. And, of course, our guest today, who will be for the remaining hour after Howard gives us the update, is Astrologer Tom Lescher. And if you want to take a look at his website, New Paradigm Astrology, go ahead and get that in the chat room if you want, and take a look at what some of Tom's work that he's been doing for over roughly 30 years. So it's such a pleasure to have him. But first we'll go ahead and see what Howard Stein's political update is for this week. Welcome to the show, Howard. What's going on in the world? I know you wanted to talk about the NDAA or something like that. What have you found?
As we call it, the final nail in the coffin, Roxy. Yeah, it was passed by Obama. Even though he stated he was going to veto that bill, it was signed and he's off to Hawaii, so that is the big nail in the coffin. So as of 6 days ago, I am now a terrorist in the government's eyes.
How is that? You know, I've been hearing a lot of controversy about this. We have done a couple, actually 3 or 4 or 5 maybe articles on this and some in-depth reporting. What does that mean to you when you say that, that according to the law that we are now terrorists? What does that mean?
Public dissent is classified now a terrorist act in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So basically I am speaking up against MDA officially. That's a terrorist act now legally.
Mm-hmm. For those who don't know, what is the NDAA?
Basically, it was slipped in through the defense budget. And it basically gives the military now full police powers of our nation. In other words, right now it is legal for a Humvee to pull up to my home, grab me by my neck, throw me into a Humvee, take me, imprison me, do not charge me at all, hold me indefinite, no lawyer, no call, and no trial. And it is 100% legal as of 6 days ago.
Right. And, yeah, I think that even some of the mainstream media that presented it were fairly shocked because, as you said, Howard, they, Obama expressed great concerns for the citizens and citizens' rights of this country and elected to veto the bill. And then the eve of New Year's went and signed the bill. So it's in full accord at this point. And I also have read, and I'd love your comment on this, that Obama had actually said that this law is left to the interpretation to whoever the commander-in-chief is, whoever is presiding at the time over our country. Is that true or not?
Are you referring this question to me?
I am.
Oh, okay. That could be one way to look at it, but I don't look at a commander-in-chief as a commander-in-chief. I look at him as the puppet, and the puppet master will decide what is basically deemed.
Okay. Well, and it seems to be that way, doesn't it? It seems to be that way. It seems like there are a lot of people in power at this point, and so there is a lot of controversy. I'm getting a lot of feedback, a lot of emails on that particular. People are asking, is it true? Is it true? Yes, people, it's true. The National Defense Act was passed, and we did discuss that on another show at length. So. At this point, we really have an audience of non-fear mongering types, and I appreciate that. And of course, our network doesn't do fear mongering. So, with that in mind, we are aware of the NDAA, and then what do we do about it as a public, as a citizenship? And I'm scared to hear what your answer is going to be, Howard.
Tyranny is here. At one point, it was something to watch out for, but it has arrived in full force. It is here. It's just a matter of between the Patriot Act, our phones being tapped, investigated without warrants, search, seizure without any form of warrants. Now with MDA, military moving in, they're already practicing on a lot of cities right now. Matter of fact, there's a program going on with U.S. Marine Corps riding with LAPD to get used to going into rough neighborhoods and seeing how the LAPD deals with the situation. Okay. So it's well on its way. It is here. I hate to be a fearmonger, and I'm not a fearmonger, but, it is here. It has arrived. The baby has been born. The only thing left now is the Second Amendment, and they're going to take care of that soon. I'm going to go into that in the future show, though.
That's what you were saying, the Second Amendment, and you're going to talk a little bit about Fast and Furious. And for future shows as well, what we're going to do, Howard and I discuss, we're going to give the audience some links in the chat room for future shows of some of the investigating that Howard's doing right now so that you can take a look at it for yourselves. And that'll also be located in the description box of the shows when they're loaded to video. So, Howard, I really appreciate it, and let's see what you have to say for next week. I appreciate you reporting. Thanks for calling in.
No problem, Roxy. Have a great show.
Yeah, thanks a lot. So that was Howard Stein again. Like I said, as we're developing this news brief for the shows from here out, we'll be having more information for the public to take a look at, for yourselves. So that'll be helpful. And moving right along, I'm very excited to have Tom on the show. Tom Lescher, welcome to the Truth and Night Talk Radio. How are you today?
Wonderful, Roxy. It's great to be here.
Thanks. And Tom, I had mentioned to some of our listeners in some of the ads that we sent out that, if they had any questions. So at some point in the show, probably about 20 minutes in, I will ask the callers who have questions for you, and Tom is totally willing to hear your questions. So please call in the number 347-327-9997. We will be taking your calls today. Again, that's 347-327-9997 if you have a question for Tom. So, Tom, you just have such a wonderful spirit. I first met you. Actually, somebody recommended me to you, and I started I signed up for your subscription, and I signed up on YouTube, I believe it was, and then started to get your forecasts and so forth that you do, and they're just fabulous. They're wonderful. Can you, for those who don't know you very well, can you talk about that a little bit, like what you do, your forecasts that are so pleasant, and you're from different areas of the world when you do them, and they're on YouTube for anybody to download and subscribe. Can you talk a little bit about when you started doing something like that and why?
Well, that's a long story. That could be the 20 minutes. Basically, I mean, I've been doing astrology for like over 30 years or so, and I started doing Kundalini yoga in 2009, and it was just about that time I started doing this Kundalini yoga, and my children grew up and left home. And I had a change. I had an opening. I lived in California, and I moved out to Hawaii. And in order to stay in touch with my kids, I got one of those little video cams to stick on my computer so that I could Skype. And one day, I was playing around with my video cam and saw that I could make little videos with it. And so it was just like a fluke that I went out in the backyard and said, well, I'm going to do, a Pele report. Pele is, I had moved to the Big Island. Pele is the goddess of the volcano there. And I was really tapping into that transformative volcanic underworld Plutonian Pele energy, and did a little 15-minute blurb and showed it to some friends, and they said, wow, you should post that and put it up on YouTube and and I did, and I started getting a positive feedback about it, and people wanted to know more. So it's become now a regular weekly thing, probably for a couple of years. It's gone by pretty fast, and so every Wednesday I just do a little 15-minute download about what the planets are speaking to me for the coming week, and it seems to reverberate pretty nicely with a lot of other people. They appreciate it.
Yeah, no kidding. How long have you been on Facebook, just out of curiosity?
I only really got going on Facebook maybe like a year ago or something.
Right, because I went to your Facebook page, and you're absolutely right. And I've also looked at comments on your YouTube channels. People just love what you're saying, and I do too. I love some of the things that you talk about, because you have, even when there are some maybe hardships coming up, or whatever you're talking about that day in your planning for the next week, or like you said, what the stars, what the planets are saying, what they're speaking to you, and we'll get into that in a little bit. I noticed that you have this just this light-hearted way, and you're really funny, actually. You have a great sense of humor. You have this light-hearted way of expressing even something that may sound negative, and you really do give people some information that can assist them through that change. For instance, one of them that I watched, one example was, the whole, and I don't know if this is your terminology, but, the idea of an individual taking more accountability for themselves and how that translates to empowerment. So I love your whole attitude is, it's instead of scolding people or telling, warning this and this, warning, you're like, hey, this is coming up and this is getting really shaky and rock and rolling, but, on the other hand, here are some tools for you to get through this week or this month or this year. Can you, where does that wonderful attitude come from? Something must have happened in your life during the process of being an astrologer, or I don't know, where does that come from? Because you're such an optimist.
Well, let's see. My mom said that one of the things that she remembered about me when I was a baby was that I was smiling all the time. So, I may have come in with a bit of a smile, but, I think that my approach towards astrology and towards life has really changed dramatically since I started doing this Kundalini yoga. It really has opened me up to that I'm a spiritual being having an earthly experience, that, we are multidimensional, universal, timeless, spirits, and that our ego, our personality that comes with this physical body when we're born is a temporary manifestation of our infinite self. And that ability to detach, the idea of non-attachment to a particular agenda or outcome or result, but to rather see this whole entire life as an evolutionary process of development, of connection, of expansion and opening of the heart, puts things in just a kind of a different perspective, a different light. It's not like, I'm not attached to a particular outcome, and when you are, that is a very liberating, way of living, I think, and it's really the more that you are able to observe your personality, observe your ego, and identify with that personality less and less and less, and identify more with your infinite spiritual self, you don't get so, beat up and dragged down and whipped around and spun around by all of this temporary, in some ways it's just Maya. It's a bunch of illusion down here in this third dimension. So does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. I like the idea of not attaching to outcome. I think that's a very empowering, and that takes practice as well. It seems like, living in the third dimension, we seem to get attached to everything that's around us, and we think everything is real at times, especially in a chaotic moment. And we attach ourselves to it, and then we actually in that moment begin to manifest more of that.
Yeah. I would also say, particularly during these times, it also gives me great amount of comfort, realizing that there is a universal intelligence. I don't care if you want to call it source, God, extraterrestrials, the galactic center. There is an organizing principle in this universe that I call life. Yeah, I just call it life, God. I serve God, I serve life, I learn from life, I give to life, I am life. Life and love, I think, are one and the same thing. And there's a lot of shit going to be coming down, this year and next year, and it's going to be, extremely, tense on a physical, which is our nervous system is physical. Our physical bodies are physical, so it's going to be affecting each and every one of us. Okay, there's no doubt about that. And so, it's going to be more stressful, and it's going to be more challenging. The more that you take your physical body as the end all, as this is it, and when my physical body is uncomfortable or my emotions are upset, I am my emotions, or when my thoughts are negative, I am my thoughts. It's like we have all of these bodies, these aspects of ourselves, but we are not these things. Yeah, we are not our body, we are not our feelings, we are not our thoughts. We have these things. And as that changes, then a lot of this, basically, like I spoke in my last forecast, it's basically humanity has been like a bunch of eggs in a bird's nest, and we have been sat upon. Call it the mother hen, call it the Illuminati, call it the G5, or whatever you want to call it, right? We have been sat upon. I love it, by this monster hot thing. And, we are now at an evolutionary stage where we are ready to hatch. And, basically, Mama Bird is going to fly away. And, it's going to scare the poop out of some people, and some people are going to smash out of those eggs and go, thank God I'm liberated, and it was getting too hot in here anyway. And some people are going to be blinded by the light and terrorized and freaked out and not know what to do. There's going to be a lot of change with this birthing process. And the idea here is really, and like I say, I feel comfortable and good about it because, yes, and I don't want to negate. I love the movie Thrive, and I'm totally into participating and being active in this change. But at the same time, there are forces at work. Natural forces, spiritual forces, economic forces, that are so big, so vast, so broad. There's basically an evolutionary force that says, guess what? It's time for you to hatch, and it's time for you to fly. And I don't have any, there's absolutely no concern on my part that the bankers and the bad guys and the government officials and all the assholes and all the religions and all the things that have been dominating, manipulating, coercing, degrading, and exploiting humanity, they're going to be going away. Pluto is moving through Capricorn, and it's there until 2024. So it's not going to happen, overnight, but Pluto is annihilation, demolition, and resurrection of a new what? Capricorn is external authority, and it is basically people coming into realizing their own co-creative abilities and becoming the authors of their own life. So it's time for each and every one of us to, take our own, responsibility for creating our reality and not be so, whipped around and whipped up and brought down by the latest newscast of, so-and-so's winning or so-and-so is losing or, the bad guys or the good guys. I mean, it's all just a bunch of polarized, dualistic, egoic thinking. You know what I'm talking about?
I do. I do. I absolutely do. I love it when you say polarized and dual. Absolutely. I completely agree with you. And, with that in mind, I do see, that those of us who are really evolving, like really, seeing the changes within ourselves, those who have worked in this area of their lives, like yourself, for many, many years, I being one of them, it is interesting to see the contrast now of those who are just, really haven't even taken their first step of having a clue. And it seems like there are people who are really spiritually imprisoned, are really have shut themselves out from their own, what you said, evolution.
Well,
what do we do with that, though? How do we help those people?
Well, that's 3/4 of the world's population is basically,
I know.
If you look at, the evolutionary stages of humanity. These are the younger souls, that have not had that many lifetimes in a physical body. They haven't had that many incarnations, and they're still dealing with just, the rudimentary, how to manage and survive in a time-space continuum. And, and they're grasping and grabbing for, those who they see as being successful, right now those figures are, people who have a lot of money, people who are famous, people who are, looking good and healthy or whatever. I mean, everybody's got their own criterion, but yeah, there's a large part of the population that, is just kind of in this situation. And I'll tell you, so much of what 2012 is about, and this is, going a little bit out there, but, it's basically, every religion has this, the Catholics call it the Judgment Day or the Apocalypse, and the Hopis, it's the fifth world, and I mean the Aztecs and the Mayan calendar. There is an ending happening here, and this ending is an ending of a certain, what we would call a shared reality. Up to this point in human evolution, we have had a coexisting within this third dimensional, reality. And at this time, in this year, and there's a particular separation going to occur. I don't want to call it Judgment Day. I just want to call it that there's choice, and there are going to be those who choose through awareness, through through a desire to liberate, to move into multidimensional awareness. There's going to be those who choose to function at a different level. And so what you're talking about is, this large percentage of the population is, not really even necessarily going to be aware of the choice. And when the choice does approach, they are going to latch onto and attach to that which is most secure, most known, most familiar, which is going to be third-dimensional space-time material existence. And they are going to continue on, with a particular evolutionary path that's not going to accelerate at the same speed as the other portion or percentage of the population that chooses an alternative reality. And this percentage portion of the population is going to enter into a different space-time continuum, a different way of manifesting their spiritual potential through this dimension and other dimensions, opening up to the fourth and fifth dimensions. And it's going to, I see it as a birth. I see it as an opportunity, and I see it as a splitting off in a certain way of, of how we experience ourselves.
Right. That's well said. Thank you. Thank you for explaining it. And, when you travel, you brought something up about 70%, 75% of the world doesn't know. When you travel to places like Bali and India and even in Hawaii, the people that you meet or people that you come across or work with, is that the same all over the world where there's a very high percentage of people who are sort of grounded in the 3D? Or are there different areas of the world where people are more open, where civilization culture is more open and practicing something completely different? What's your experience with that?
My experience is that in the past, I would say, probably just right up to the last, 20, 30 years, it was pretty much geographically anywhere that you went, it would be 3/4 of the population was in the herd state or the consensus state of evolution. Nowadays, with the birth of the internet, with the birth of globalization and the communication, and we have these, as the time ripens, I believe there is more of a concentration, of people who are like-minded and seeking to form community or seeking to connect in this place or that place. And so now I think you can go to different places, call them vortexes or whatever, but I mean, people all know of them. Bali's one of them, Costa Rica's another one, Taos, New Mexico, Sedona, Ashland, California, Ashland, Oregon, but, there's different hot spots, Mount Shasta, people know these places, and I think so so to just answer your question simply, used to be, yes, all over was pretty much the same. Now I think it's separating, and you will find more and more local places where there is a higher percentage of people that are working in a different way.
That's wonderful to know. That's really wonderful to know. And you mentioned earlier is what could we get more specific on the Mayan calendar, the 2012, the end of an age, the end of and actually the going through the door, like you had said, the birthing of a new age. What are some of the things that people will experience this year? I mean, is there any way you can just tell us an overall view? I know you explained some stuff, but in particular, like, are we going to see more government push? Are we going to see more with the adversaries sort of trying to make a push to so that we don't wake up, so that we don't birth? Or is this inevitable? Are we birthing and there is nothing anyone can do about it? That the elite, that's an illusion, that the elite have the control and the New World Order and the whole nine yards. Where does astrology fit into that? Does astrology just flat out say, ha ha, there are certain I don't even know what to call it actually, but anyway, we're designed to go through this and birth, over the next few years really, and there's nothing that's going to stop us. Is that how you feel about it? That's just where we're going. That humanity can participate or not, but the button has been pushed and the green light is on, and we're going forward. We're going to move forward. We're going to evolve. We're going to do this quantum leap as humanity, or because that's what I believe. But I mean, that's how I see it. But what do you see?
Well, the whole thing is fate and free will. What I see is that, a bird has no choice but to be a bird, and it flies and it sings, and, that's what it's about. And some would say, an angel has no free will. An angel is a frickin' angel, and he does what an angel does, It's really the human experiment, that gives us, and some extraterrestrial races will say that, this is the darkest planet, of anywhere, and that's why all the extraterrestrials are so interested in it. It's almost like we are on the front lines of the evolutionary development because we see ourselves more separate from Source than any other thing existing in creation. Yeah. So, we are so separate that we think that we are in control, or that we are separate from this flow of eternal life. And what that creates is free will. It creates freedom. And, we have choices. And what happens, what I find with this force of Pluto, which is now this year, 2012, squaring Uranus, very strongly in June and then again in October. And we're looking at a situation where all I can say is that when you resist the evolution, the evolutionary force, it creates pain. It's just like damming the river. There is a buildup and there becomes pressure, until ultimately, the dam is going to break when there is enough pressure put upon it. And that creates painful experiences for people. And so I am going to, my sense of it is that there is a lot of resistance to change, that there is a strong holding and clinging and a fear of the unknown future by those who are in positions of power and authority, and they're not going to just hand over the baton. It's going to be that they're going to be writhing in excruciating pain, gasping the last breath, of the old paradigm. If you just look at all the old, Rome did not go down easily, Greece didn't go down easily. A lot of these, it's not easy, humanity tends to, resist change. This is just, part of the, the free will to choose not to be what we intrinsically essentially are. And it's part of the game. But, when you take that game more seriously, of course, then you become more frightened. And fear is the opposite of unity, right? There's love and fear. Love is unity and fear is separation. And the more you view yourself as being separate from spirit, source, this creative evolutionary force we call life, then the more you have fear, and the more that fear creates insecurity, so you attach and you cling onto, these institutional, financial, real estate or money or whatever, for security. In fact, other people, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, you can also attach onto those things, It's not all about money. People are grabbing onto any frickin' thing that they can grab onto for a sense of, give me some security here, So I see, that no, it's going to be tumultuous, as it's going to be challenging for a lot of people who are really, taking the game very seriously.
Sure. Now, with there have been a couple of questions that I've been taking to ask you over the last week, and one of them is somebody had a question of, Tom, are there two moons around the Earth? That's one question, because there's a lot of controversy about people are seeing two different moons. Is this a reality, or does it even matter?
I haven't seen the second moon, so just going by my own personal experience, I can't validate it, and that doesn't mean that it's not there, and I don't know that it makes that much difference.
I think they were thinking because you're an astrologer and you deal with, the celestial alignments, etc., and they were wondering about that. And somebody else asked about Planet X. Is there a Planet X, and does that matter if there is or there isn't? Are you dealing with a Planet X in astrology at all?
I do not deal with a Planet X. There have been numerous Planet X's. One is like Vulcan, which is, on the opposite side of the sun, of the Earth, going back a long, long way. Then another Planet X was another planet that was just outside the orbit of Pluto. That was called Trans-Pluto, or Planet X. So there's been a number of different Planet X's. I have worked with Uranian astrology, which has 9 hypothetical planets. I'm looking at Sedna, that is a recently discovered. I certainly work with Chiron, which is, a planetoid. But in terms of, like another Earth or another, planet, I don't work with one, and I am not fully aware of one.
Okay. Thanks for that.
I do feel as if there are parallel universes. And so I think people may be tapping into, another dimensional realm, another parallel universe where there is another, a copy of Earth, or it's like our anti-Earth, or our, anima animus, it's the alter Earth. And so I do believe that is a certain reality that you can, work with and tap into. But in terms of it in this dimension as a physical planet, I don't see it that way.
Gotcha. I've thought of that as well, like maybe that we're being able to peer into these other dimensions that exist and always have existed, and maybe people are starting to see that. And of course, there's a whole other push for, the idea that they're holograms designed by, the military and this and that to confuse us as humans and what have you. And there's just a huge controversy, and I think people just get very curious about, I think people are stumbling on what is real and what isn't real anymore. You know what I mean? And you so said it so beautifully. We start to realize that the design is life and the design is love. I completely comply with that. If I'm going to believe in something, life, we came here to live. We came here to experience. And I do subscribe to, pain is a resistance to change. I know it for my own personal life. When I've resisted change in my own life, it's a struggle. It gets very painful until the pressure is so great on my heart that I have to move through it. And believe me, I'm pretty stubborn. So I have learned to work on that letting go. And so thank you for that. Now, what are your clients' experience as far as what do you do for some of your clients? I know that you do readings for them, and what does that entail for those who don't really understand what an astrology reading is all about, or astrological reading?
I do a form of evolutionary astrology blended with shamanic astrology, so I call it New Paradigm Astrology, but it's based upon the idea that you are an infinite spiritual being that chooses a particular set of DNA, a particular set of parents, a particular religion, culture, economic status, time and place on this planet to take that first breath. Prana, spirit, that first breath, is they cut the umbilical cord. Sometimes, if you're lucky, they don't. But you still take that first breath, yeah? And at that moment in time, yeah, the macrocosm mirrors the microcosm. So you draw up your astrological birth chart is a map of the macrocosm drawn up for the exact moment that you take in that first breath. And even some people say, you know what, there is a need at any given moment. There is a need And that need is reflected in the universe, in the macrocosm. And you come to fulfill that need. So in a way, your birth chart indicates a need that you came, or a vacuum or a void, that you came to fill. So it is basically a virtual blueprint of your soul, which is your unconscious spiritual intention, that is born out of and reflects what you've done in your past lives, where you've been, and kind of summarize. So when a client comes to me, I summarize, their past lives, where they've been, what they've done, what their soul has been working on in the most recent incarnations. And of course, your choices determine why you come back. You're back to, you took on a project that takes more than one lifetime. You want to do something differently. You met somebody that you want to meet again. You want to, do something that you've never done before. There's all kinds of different reasons why the soul incarnates. And from that purpose, from that soul intention, an unconscious soul intention, the intention is to get your ego, your personality, which is a small percentage of your total being, into alignment with the larger part of your soul being, which is unconscious. I mean, really, life is the process of bringing the unconscious into consciousness. So I found that astrology is the best way to do that, because it is a map of your own personal unconscious. And when you talk to somebody, obviously you're addressing their consciousness. So you're bringing their unconscious into their consciousness. Then, of course, we also look at, basically, I always ask people, what do you want to know? What are your questions? What are you dealing with? So the life intention in the past lives, that's like the first 10 minutes or 15 minutes of the reading. It just kind of sets the platform, because out of that unconscious soul intention comes everything else, okay? Your childhood, your parents, your brothers and sisters, your spouses, your job, your career, your money, your sex, your, partnership, loneliness, fame, fortune, whatever. I mean, all of these other aspects, okay, all of your unfoldment occurs through cycles. And astrology then is also the study of cycles. And these cycles of unfoldment, come through what? The moon's once a month, sun's once a year, Saturn is every 28 years, Jupiter's every 12 years, Mars is every 2 years. You get into these, cycles of time, cycles of unfoldment, and you can see when the next wave is coming. I look at a chart reading as just, giving a person, if you're surfing, the person is surfing, and they want to know when to paddle, when the wave is coming. It's nice to see, I don't predict. I don't like to predict. I like to say that, what, this wave is coming, and you should start paddling in this direction, this hard,
Yes.
And, or it's going to be flat for a while. So just be patient and hang,
So don't waste
loose.
your energy paddling. You can actually just rest on your board while, I get it. I'm a surfer. It sounds like you might be too. So yeah, I totally get what you're saying. That's a really neat way of explaining it, by the way. I like that. I like that. That even helps me right now too. I get what you're saying. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. So, and it I like when you say, it's a blueprint on, the moment you were born, the moment you came into existence, the moment that you were filling a void, and then I guess people, I think that. And what do you think in your experience with the people that you do come across and your clients and so forth? Would you say that a lot of them, and I don't want to get into breaking in any anonymity here or anything, but are people lost? Are they looking for themselves?
Well, when what is it? When the student is ready, the teacher appears. And when you ask the question, the answer comes. I mean, it's it's just there's no accidents. I mean, in astrology, there's no accidents, right? So there's no coincidence. So people who come to me for an astrology reading, okay, you know, are coming to me because guess what? You know, it was set up, you know, that they needed to hear something in particular, you know, at that particular time in their biography, you know, and it's going to come through me. So, you know, that's, you know, it's really kind of I see it as a very sacred kind of relationship that's formed, and in terms of, you know, so I will say that everybody is asleep in one way, shape, or form, and everyone is waking up in one way, shape, or form, and each soul is doing it in their own unique way. So, you know, we're all, you know, everybody's messed up someplace, and everybody's got it together someplace else. So I don't really, I can't really answer your question, you know, in terms of just, you know, awake and asleep. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not, I like your explanation for it too, that we're all have areas. You're absolutely right. We all have areas of the subconscious and the unconscious, you know, that we're not tapped into, you know, and so none of us know everything and none of us know nothing. So it's not that easy. Yeah, it does answer my question. I think that a lot of people
in another way and on another level, I will say to you that people who come to me for a chart reading are by and large on a spiritual path.
Gotcha.
You know, they're not newbies. You know, they've been doing some, you know, inner work, you know, for a period of time, and they are waking up in certain different ways. And of course, you can see that because, like we were speaking of earlier, the consensus or the three-quarters of the population, part of the way that you can identify these people is that they trust and believe in the particular authorities that are agreed upon existing within the current time frame that they are living. So if you're in the consensus or the herd state, you are now listening to the scientists and to the president and the officials and to the millionaire movie stars and, you know, and to the high church officials, because these are, you know, in America or wherever, you know, these are the people that make the news and make the headlines and are considered authorities. So anybody who comes to an astrologer to get their answers, to get answers to their questions, is obviously not buying into or a part of that consensus reality, because all the scientists and the religious figures and blah, blah, blah all say that astrology is full of shit. So these, you know, so the fact that you are reaching out into the unknown, into an unvalidated source of intelligence, you know, to get solutions to your problems, indicates that you are awake to a certain degree, that there are other sources of information besides what is generally accepted or acknowledged.
Right, I agree. Yeah, I totally agree with you. I get that, and I think our listeners get that too. How does one contact you? If you could give out, you know, all that information, do people call you? Do they email you? What's a way to contact you to set up a meeting with you or get on, you know, subscribe to, you know, your information, your wonderful YouTube videos and stuff? How do people contact you?
Well, I have my website. It's newparadigmastrology.com, and that's NEWPARADIGM astrology.com. And if you go to the website, down at the left, you can just click on subscribe and put in your email address. And once a week, I do that little 15-minute, forecast on YouTube, and I send that out, to everybody on my that has subscribed. And I write a forecast once a month or so, and I don't fill up your inbox or anything. I only send things out once a week. But that's one way. And then, of course, to get a reading, you can also go to the website and click on List All Products. And when you go to List All Products, I've got classes that I've taught, lectures that I've given, different recordings that you can just buy and download for, I think, $20 or something. And then you can also purchase, I do different kinds of readings. I do relationship readings where, people, I draw both people's charts or three people's charts, and then I look at the synastry and the composite chart, and that's one type. And then I do a personal chart interpretation. I do astrocartography, a geography, which is looking at different places on the planet that have different energy for you. People who want to be moving or setting up a center or traveling or this, that, or the other thing. You can look at the astrocartography. So all that's on my website. That's the best way to get a hold of me.
That's wonderful. And we will have that on the show. We'll have all of your contact information as well. And I like that astrocartography. That sounds amazing. That's where it would so do you do like a report based on like the person's birth date and so forth to actually get access that where that individual or that client really would be more, living more optimal life, if you will, somewhere else than where they are residing at the moment? Is that how that all works? Is it one thing sort of leads to another, or as far as energy goes, or energetic relationship to the planet, if you will?
Yeah, basically Jim Lewis was the author of astrocartography back in, I think it was the 70s or even maybe the 60s, but it's a means of superimposing basically planetary lines based upon your time, date, and place of birth. You draw where Venus was at the midheaven, where Venus was rising, where Venus was setting, where all the different planets were at the time that you were born, and there's lines going across the Earth as it moved, as it turned. So you can go to different places on the globe and highlight, Venus or Mars or Jupiter, and make it, on the ascendant or the midheaven or the descendant or the IC, the nadir. So what that does, that says that, there are certain things coming from different places on Earth. And if you're looking for love or money or home or children or, career or this, that, or the other thing, that you're going to find those influences stronger in different geographical regions.
And basically that's what suits you best. That's interesting as well. So much more that I want to ask you a few questions on my own, but I think as well I'm gonna definitely say this on the air, and I'll contact you after the show. But I'm definitely gonna order the astrocartography. Cartography, is that how you say it?
I just call it astrogeography.
Astrogeography. Okay, astrogeography. Sounds good. I'm definitely going to do that, and I have my reasons why, but I'm not going to go any further than that on the air. This show's about you. So when will you be do you meet people in person as well at all? Like, for instance, when you're in Hawaii, do you meet with clients in person, or do you do this all on the web? How's that work for you?
No, I meet people in person all the time, and I do readings on Skype, so that you have that video, you can see the other person, that's nice. And, of course, the reading is recorded, so I send a recording of the reading to the person through the Internet. But, I'm in Northern California now, and I'm doing a workshop here, and I'm seeing people and doing readings and giving talks, and the end of the month, I go out to Hawaii, and I'm doing some workshops on different islands in Hawaii, and I'll be meeting people in person or through Skype. for readings. Basically wherever I go, I'm doing readings.
Yeah, no kidding. How exciting. And then I have a question. Do you teach Kundalini yoga?
Yes, I do. Yeah, that's it's part of the workshops that I do, and if I ever stayed in one place long enough, I'd actually teach it as at a place, but I just incorporate it into my workshops at this point.
Right, because you're moving around the planet, it seems like. Is there any favorite place that you've been to in the world that you like in particular, that you like more than any other place, a place that you feel or you call home?
Hawaii.
I thought you were going to say that. So that's
I love Hawaii.
Yeah. How could you not? And of course, where you are in the Big Island too. Yeah, I can't wait to meet with you in person when I go home, because I really want to meet with you in person, Tom. You're a very, very strong individual. You grab me like the very first video. People, you have to go and at least download a couple of these videos that Tom is on, because you really grab me right away. You're very strong, and at the same time, you're humorous, you're light. You just got a total mixture of personality, and I enjoy it. And I'm really glad that you came on the show today. We'll load up that video, and I'll get it to you in case you want to put it on your website, of this entire show with all your contact information and some of what you do. I really look forward to, you're a new friend now, Tom, and I'm excited to get to know you better. And I can't wait to see some of the work that you're going to be doing throughout the year. I'm really interested in what you're doing, and I definitely, personally, would like to. I'm going to talk to you about getting an astrogeography chart. I'm very curious about that as well. And is there anything that you wanted to add before we go? We're going to be wrapping up the show in a couple minutes.
Not particularly. No, I'm fine. Everything's
You're
great.
good.
I appreciation and gratitude. I mean, it's nice to have this conversation, and I don't know how many people are out there listening or whatever, but it's wonderful to have an opportunity to share myself and be heard. I think everybody really needs that, likes that, and I thank you for giving me that opportunity, Roxy.
Absolutely. It's mutual. It's all mutual. We're all here to help one another. Absolutely. Totally enjoyed you. So, Tom Lescher, if you want to reach Tom, that's newparadigmastrology.com. We'll have all the information for you late this afternoon, the video, some photos of Tom's travels, and this entire download of the show. And I'll get that over to you as well, Tom. Tom, thanks so much. Mahalo nui loa, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for coming.
Mahalo nui loa.
Mahalo nui loa. And that was Tom Lescher, everybody. And we're just going to be wrapping this show up. It was such a pleasure to have Tom on the show today. Really calming. I had a really, really crazy morning, so that was really calming. This Monday on the Just Bernard show, they're going to have a very special broadcast on raising the new children with emissary Annie Myers, the Indigo Crystal and Rainbow Children caretakers. Wow. We really need to tune into that. And it's on the Just Bernard show on Monday, so watch for those ads. And I just want to say, hey, it's been a real pleasure. If you need to get a hold of Tom, we'll have all of his information. We want to thank Howard Stein for coming on and doing the political commentary every Friday. This is the Truth Denied Talk Radio. I'm your host, Roxy Lopez, and I'm going to be getting in the car tomorrow morning and going to Sedona with Michael Murphy, and we're going to be doing some filming. So we'll be reporting on that next week. Michael Murphy from What in the World Are They Spraying? I want to thank the GIC. Without the GIC, we would not have this show, this platform for truth and understanding and communication with the world. Again, have a great weekend. Thanks for coming. So, Howard, I really appreciate it, and let's see what you have to say for next week. I appreciate you reporting. Thanks for calling in.
No problem, Roxy. Have a great show.
Yeah, thanks a lot. So that was Howard Stein again. Like I said, as we're developing this news brief for the shows from here out, we'll be having more information for the public to take a look at, for yourselves. So that'll be helpful. And moving right along, I'm very excited to have Tom on the show. Tom Lescher, welcome to the Truth and Night Talk Radio. How are you today?
Wonderful, Roxy. It's great to be here.
Thanks. And Tom, I had mentioned to some of our listeners in some of the ads that we sent out that, if they had any questions. So at some point in the show, probably about 20 minutes in, I will ask the callers who have questions for you, and Tom is totally willing to hear your questions. So please call in the number 347-327-9997. We will be taking your calls today. Again, that's 347-327-9997 if you have a question for Tom. So, Tom, you just have such a wonderful spirit. I first met you. Actually, somebody recommended me to you, and I started I signed up for your subscription, and I signed up on YouTube, I believe it was, and then started to get your forecasts and so forth that you do, and they're just fabulous. They're wonderful. Can you, for those who don't know you very well,
100% legal as of 6 days ago.
Right, and yeah, I think that even some of the mainstream media that presented it were fairly shocked because, as you said, Howard, they. Obama expressed great concerns for the citizens and citizens' rights of this country and elected to veto the bill. And then the eve of New Year's went and signed the bill. So it's in full accord at this point. And I also have read, and I'd love your comment on this, that Obama had actually said that this law is left to the interpretation to whoever the commander-in-chief is, whoever is presiding at the time over our country. Is that true or not?
Are you referring this question to me?
I am.
Oh, okay. That could be one way to look at it, but I don't look at a commander-in-chief as a commander-in-chief. I look at him as the puppet. And the puppet master will decide what is basically deemed.
Okay. Well, and it seems to be that way, doesn't it? It seems to be that way. It seems like there are a lot of people in power at this point, and so there is a lot of controversy. I'm getting a lot of feedback, a lot of emails on that particular. People are asking, is it true? Is it true? Yes, people, it's true. The National Defense Act was passed. And we did discuss that on another show at length. So at this point, we really have an audience of non-fear-mongering types, and I appreciate that. And, of course, our network doesn't do fear-mongering. So with that in mind, we are aware of the NDAA, and then what do we do about it as a public, as a citizenship? And I'm scared to hear what your answer is going to be, Howard.
Tyranny is here. At one point, it was something to watch out for, but it has arrived in full force. It is here. It's just a matter of, between the Patriot Act, our phones being tapped, investigated without warrants, search, seizure without any form of warrants. Now with MDA, military moving in, they're already practicing on a lot of cities right now. Matter of fact, there's a program going on with U.S. Marine Corps riding with LAPD to get used to going into rough neighborhoods and seeing how the LAPD deals with the situation. Okay. So it's well on its way. It is here. I hate to be a fearmonger, and I'm not a fearmonger, but, it is here. It has arrived. The baby has been born. The only thing left now is the Second Amendment, and they're going to take care of that soon. I'm going to go into that in the future show, though.
That's what you were saying, the Second Amendment, and you're going to talk a little bit about Fast and Furious. And for future shows as well, what we're going to do, Howard and I discuss, we're going to give the audience some links in the chat room for future shows of some of the investigating that Howard's doing right now so that you can take a look at it for yourselves. And that'll also be located in the description box of the the shows when they're loaded to video. So go ahead and see what Howard Stein's political update is for this week. Welcome to the show. Howard, what's going on in the world? I know you wanted to talk about the NDAA or something like that. What have you found?
As we call it, the final nail in the coffin, Roxy. Yeah, it was passed by Obama. Even though he stated he was going to veto that bill, it was signed, and he's off to Hawaii, so that is the big nail in the coffin. So as of 6 days ago, I am now a terrorist in the government's eyes.
How is that? You know, I've been hearing a lot of controversy about this. We have done a couple, actually 3 or 4 or 5 maybe articles on this and some in-depth reporting. What does that mean to you when you say that, that according to the law that we are now terrorists? What does that mean?
Public dissent is classified now a terrorist act in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, I am speaking up against MDA officially. That's a terrorist act now, legally.
Mm-hmm. For those who don't know, what is the NDAA?
Basically, it was slipped in through the defense budget. And it basically gives the military now full police powers of our nation. In other words, right now it is legal for a Humvee to pull up to my home, grab me by my neck, throw me into a Humvee, take me, imprison me, do not charge me at all, hold me indefinite, no lawyer, no call, and no trial. And it is
GIC Radio presents The Truth Denied, Talk Radio, with your host, Roxy Lopez, where truth never lies. If you would like to speak with Roxy on the air, the call-in number is 347-327-9997. Here she is, your host, Roxy Lopez. Never lies.
Good morning, everybody. The Truth Tonight Talk Radio. I'm your host today, Roxy Lopez. We've got a great show for you. Of course, we have Howard, our commentator now, who comes on to the weekly show, gives us political updates, and that's good for us. We need to know what's going on politically. And, of course, our guest today, who will be for the remaining hour after Howard gives us the update, is Astrologer Tom Lescher. And if you want to take a look at his website, New Paradigm Astrology, go ahead and get that in the chat room if you want, and take a look at what some of Tom's work that he's been doing for over roughly 30 years. So it's such a pleasure to have him. But first, we'll